And what has happened subsequently after that? They lost their special status. And then now they have to compete with the rest of the population. And subsequently, a lot of them are struggling. But the problem is that even though there's a lot of them who are struggling, a lot of them who are homeless, a lot of them who are poor, living in abject poverty, living below the poverty line, there's still less of them who are poor. There's still less of them who are homeless. There's still less of them who are living below the poverty line in terms of absolute terms and in terms of per capita basis. And also, of course, there's a lot more of them who are living paycheck to paycheck. But they are still doing better than the majority of South Africans. Even that's the case, they still don't like it. And they feel like that it's an injustice. Like to the point where you would find white South Africans who work at a supermarket, for instance, or at a restaurant, for instance, because maybe they didn't have enough skills or they are not capable to go to university to get a skill. And so you'll find one or two of them in a store, working at a store. But I'm talking about in 2025. But even then, all the time, they're always in management or higher up in a supervisory role. And more so, they don't have to worry about taking 3 or 4 taxis to go home to the township. Here now, I'm talking about unskilled white South Africans who are earning minimum wage jobs. They still have cars. Even if it's an old Toyota Tazz that was a 1995 Toyota Tazz, they have a car. Even if it's an old Nissan Sentra of 1990, they have a car that they can drive to work. This is the reality. And even if they don't have a car, because I've seen some of them who they have to take a taxi, but they have to take a taxi from Rondebosch, from where they are working at Pick n Pay, to Kenilworth or Plumstead, in the family home that has been handed down to them. Which is the same story, obviously, with black people who have to take a taxi from Rondebosch to Gugulethu, to the family home or to a shack. That's really what the big difference is. You have a lot of unemployed white South Africans in Cape Town who are not homeless because they are still living in that family home that they received in Apartheid South Africa. There's a couple that I know in Marlborough, economically inactive, living in a big house that is poorly maintained and poorly managed, living also on the basic incomes. Some of them might be renting out a room or two to actually supplement, but this is a house that they got from their parents or grandparents. I know some others in Plumstead. There's one particular house and that I saw in Plumstead when I was staying in Plumstead with some friends. This house looks so run down, and I was like, why is this house so run down in the middle of Plumstead? This was a few years ago. And then I saw at some stage that, oh, there's a white guy who lives here. Oh, there's a white guy. And it's probably his house that he inherited from his parents. That's white people struggling. Because everyone of us know that if your struggle means that you still have a shelter and a roof over your head, your struggle is much better than the majority of black South Africans. This is not to say that there aren't any homeless white South Africans. There are many. I met a lot in Cape Town. I met a lot in Potchefstroom Northwest. A lot of homeless South Africans, white South Africans in Delmas, Mpumalanga, where I worked for a couple of years. Where a lot of homeless white South Africans in Rustenburg, where I also worked for a couple of years. Especially if you go to these provinces like Northwest, Limpopo, or Free State, you'll find a lot of poor white people. But the issue for me is that, why is your poverty so special? Why do you feel like your poverty is special? I really need to know. Why do you feel that your poverty is so special that it requires you to have a so-called civil rights group that earns millions of dollars per year lobbying for you to say that you are being oppressed, when you are in a better condition than most poor and very destitute Black South Africans? It's the reality of the situation in the country points towards the fact that Thuli Madonsela is right. Also, the reality of the comments. I was reading comments. This guy complains that half his family is poor, all of this, all of that. A lot of Black South Africans, it's not just half their family that is poor, unemployed. It's almost 90% of their family that is poor and unemployed. A lot of Black South Africans who are in the middle class, you find that this person is the only person who has a job. And the first person in this entire family who has ever bought a car. And by car here, I'm talking about a Toyota Etios or a Polo Vivo. Why do you think that your struggle is special? Also, the most sinister part of this is that they are complaining about, because they can't really prove based on factual basis that they are being oppressed. Now, there is a lot of moving of goalposts when now they're complaining about the endemic corruption that is in South Africa. There's a lot of issues that you can complain about, from load shedding, which is obviously due to corruption, state capture, various politicians who have been found several times with their hands in the cookie jar, a lot of money that have been stolen in national government, provincial government, local government. The politicians are stealing money, not just the ANC. And now they are using these issues of corruption as if corruption is a civil rights infringement against white South Africans. What? What? Even if we say that the ANC government embezzles 50% of all the taxpayers' money, is that your evidence that you as a white South African, you are oppressed? Is that your evidence? Is there any factual basis anywhere in the world that widespread and out of control government corruption implies racial discrimination? And also that needs to be used as a justification for toppling the government, using external forces?